All right, today we're talking about a place that's practically a legend, a place most of us have a picture of in our heads, but might not really know at all. We're heading to the last frontier, Alaska.
So be honest for a second. When I say the word Alaska, what's the first image that pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably just ice, right? Endless fields of snow, maybe a polar bear wandering around, and just total, complete isolation.
Well, what if I told you that the real story is so much more than that? We're going to peel back those frosty layers because the reality of Alaska is bigger, wilder, and frankly, a whole lot more surprising than you can probably imagine.
And you know what? Let's just shatter that all ice stereotype right now. Just look at this. This is Denali, the highest mountain peak in all of North America. And notice all that green? Summer in Alaska is incredibly lush and alive. This isn't some frozen wasteland, it's a place of absolutely dramatic, breathtaking beauty.
And that brings us to our first big point. To really get Alaska, you have to understand its mind-boggling scale. It's a land of superlatives that goes way, way beyond any postcard you've ever seen.
Let's just start with a number. Over 663,000 square miles. It's a number so big, your brain almost can't process it. So, what does that actually look like?
Well, this map really helps put it into perspective. See, Alaska isn't just big. It's more than twice the size of Texas. Let me say that again. More than twice the size of Texas. You could literally take Texas, California, and Montana, drop them inside Alaska, and you'd still have room to spare. It is, by a massive margin, the largest state in the Union.
Okay, here's a fun one for you, a little brain teaser. Which U.S. state is the most western? And which one is the most eastern? The answer to both is Alaska. How is that even possible? Well, its chain of islands, the Aleutians, stretch so far west that they actually cross the 180-degree meridian and pop right into the eastern hemisphere. Pretty wild, right?
And if you thought that was crazy, get a load of this. 34,000 miles. That's how much tidal shoreline Alaska has thanks to all its islands and jagged inlets. To put that in perspective, that is more coastline than all the other 49 U.S. states have combined.
So you have to be wondering, how on earth did this immense, unique land become part of the United States in the first place? Well, that question takes us on a pretty wild historical ride, from its days as a Russian colony to its journey to becoming the 49th state.
Here are the key moments in a nutshell. The story really kicks off with the Russians, who set up the first permanent European settlement way back in 1784. But the big game changer, the moment everything pivoted, was in 1867 when the U.S. bought it. That was followed by the absolute chaos of the Klondike Gold Rush, which finally, after a long wait, led to statehood in 1959.
But back at the time of the purchase, people thought it was a joke, a huge, expensive joke. Critics called it Seward's Folly, named after the Secretary of State, William Seward, who pushed the deal through. Most Americans figured he had just spent a fortune on a useless block of ice. So how much did this folly cost? The total price tag was $7.2 million. Now, that sounds like a lot of money for the 1860s, but let's break it down a bit.
When you do the math, it works out to about 2 cents an acre. 2 cents.
And what was that discovery? Gold. All that talk about a useless ice ox went right out the window. The Klondike Gold Rush brought a tidal wave of people pouring into the territory. And this photo, it's just incredible. This is a real line of thousands of prospectors climbing the icy Chilkoot Trail. That moment changed Alaska's destiny forever.
So that's the history. But what about the people who actually call this great land home today? Let's shift gears and look at who lives there and how life is structured in such a massive place. Now this might be the most surprising fact of all. You'd think people would be spread out everywhere, right? Wrong. About half of the entire population of Alaska lives in just one city's metro area, Anchorage. The other half is scattered across, well, that giant expanse we were just talking about. And that contrast is everything. Alaska's total population is tiny. It ranks 48th in the US, but its population density is dead last. At just over 1 person per square mile, it is, by a huge margin, the most sparsely populated state in America. But just talking about numbers and empty space totally misses the soul of the place. Because the human story in Alaska goes back thousands and thousands of years, long before any Russians or Americans ever set foot there. The state is home to this incredibly rich and diverse tapestry of indigenous cultures. And we're not talking about just one group. This is just a small sample of the many distinct peoples, the Tlingit, the Haida, the Aleut, the Yupik, the Inupiat, and so many others. Each one has deep, ancient roots in this land, with their own unique languages and traditions. And this all brings us to the central tension that really defines modern Alaska. It's this constant, powerful tug-of-war between preserving its unparalleled natural wilderness and developing its vast economic resources. This slide really captures that conflict perfectly. On one side, you have the wild, pristine Alaska, symbolized by this grizzly bear. And on the other side, you've got this old map of Russian America, which is a perfect reminder that from the very beginning, outsiders have seen this land as a treasure chest of resources. First it was fur, then it was gold, and then came something else entirely. That something else was oil. The massive discovery up at Prudhoe Bay in 1968 completely transformed the state. It changed everything. Suddenly, oil revenue was funding the entire government. They got rid of the state income tax, and they even created something called the Alaska Permanent Fund, a state-owned investment fund that pays out a dividend, a check, to nearly every single resident every year. And that discovery really set the stage for what one source perfectly calls the battle between philosophies of development and conservation. That debate over things like drilling for more oil and protected wildlife refuges is the defining political and cultural issue in Alaska today. So, we end right back where we started, with this one big question. As the true last frontier, Alaska stands at a crossroads. How it decides to balance the immense value of its natural resources against the priceless value of its wilderness, well, that decision won't just define its future. It's going to say a whole lot about ours, too.